Hello you guys, what is up? Welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Wessli-Ann. I would love for you to stick around and subscribe. Today we are doing a little sit down video to talk all about the home buying process, the home building process, all of the fun house related things. If you are new to the channel, just stumbling across this video, my husband and I started the house building and buying process early on this year, and we are finally in our new home and I am so excited about it. It feels like we're finally starting to really get settled in, and I felt like this was a good time to sit down and just address a bunch of questions I got throughout the months of us building and buying this house, because obviously I have been vlogging my life for the past year and you guys have seen a lot of the frustrating parts, a lot of the exciting parts, all the things leading up to us being in this house. And I feel like I've gotten so many questions throughout the time of like, why is it stressful? Like, how did you go about this? When did you have to do this? All the things. So I wanted to kind of have a one-stop shop video for addressing all of those questions. So if you're interested in knowing more about our process with this house and kind of what our house buying process was like, and kind of gaining some more information and knowledge on the house buying process, then grab yourself a snack, a coffee, whatever, and let's get on into all of it. Okay, so I had you guys ask me questions over on Instagram. So I have all the questions right here. It's kind of a lot, so I'm gonna go through as many as I can in this video and just touch on everything. I'm also trying to finish the rest of my coffee. Currently, I am sitting in the sitting area of our master bedroom. I really love this area just because it has good lighting. I have my nice comfy chair, my little olive tree. I just feel like it's a good filming spot, and this will be a spot that I can kind of use to create a lot of content. Okay, so let's get into it. First question I'm gonna start with is, what was the best part about it and the hardest part about it? So I would say the best part about our process, at least with building and buying a house, was that we got to completely customize this house to how we wanted it. So versus buying a pre-existing house where we would have had to go back later and make updates and renovations and all those things, I love that we could go to a design center and just pick out everything, and getting to really see it all come to life was really cool. Because when you're in the design center, you get to see samples of everything, but you don't know how it's all going to come together until it actually does. So that to me was the best part of the process, getting to just see your vision come to life. Then I would say the hardest part, honestly, was the waiting. For me, I felt like it was just a really long process, and I feel like everyone's building situation is different and home buying process is different. But for us, we just ran into a bunch of different roadblocks. Nothing that had to do with us or our builder or anything. It was more so government regulation and getting permits and all of those things, and it just really slowed down the process. So that was really hard for me because I kind of had expectations for us to be in this house a lot earlier than we ended up getting to be in it. So learning to be patient was key, and it was probably the hardest part for me, which even going through buying any house, you do have to have patience and understanding and just trust the process. But it's a lot easier said than done. Someone asked, what is your favorite part of the house? Gosh, that is so hard to pick. I feel like I love so many different parts of our house. I love my office. I love our master bedroom. But I feel like I love the living room area the most, and I love our kitchen too. I love it all, but I think I love our living room area the most because it gets really good lighting during the day. It's really bright. Our whole house is, but the living room is the one part that I had the biggest vision for, and I really love to see that it came to life. And I feel like at nighttime it's so cozy, especially right now because we have the Christmas tree up and everything, and so it's really cozy. And I love our couches. They're so comfortable and they're exactly what I envisioned. And yeah, I just feel like our living room is probably my favorite right now. That could change, but so many parts of the house are my favorite. Next question is, what are some pros and cons when buying a new build? There are a lot. I would say pros, like I said earlier, you get to pick out everything, so the house is really kind of custom to you if you get to do that. Some people buy a new build and it's kind of like a spec home, so the builder had already picked out everything and you don't really get a say. It's just how it is. But if you get the chance to pick out your lot and then build, you do get to kind of customize the house to what you want. I would also say a pro is that it's not only brand new to you, it's just brand new in general. So everything is brand new. You're the first person to use it. and that includes literally everything, like cosmetic things, and then also like the HVAC and the hot water heater and appliances. Like all those things are brand new to you. You really get to be the first person to use all of it, and it's not items that have already been used or, you know, could potentially die out in a year because they've been existent for a 10-year time period at that point. When you buy a pre-existing house, that's typically how it goes. You have to pretty soon after buying replace a lot of things, and so I was very thankful with this house that everything, literally everything, is brand new. I would say a con would be that, at least with like our situation in building, and if you buy a house, like you go through a contractor and custom build and all of that, it's a little bit different. But when you are going through kind of a general building company, they tend to kind of like slap these houses up as quick as possible, and with that comes a lot of mistakes and things along the way that you have to address with the builder and say like, like this wasn't done right. Or like, for example, we paid extra for all black hardware in the house, so that includes like faucets, doorknobs, door hinges, like everything. And when they installed the doors, they put silver hinges on instead of the black, and so I noticed that and was like, whoa, this is not right. You need to go back and replace all these, and our builder noticed it too. But when you just have these contractors out here just doing what they're supposed to do, and they're just kind of clocking in 9 to 5 getting the job done, they're not super careful. So a lot of stuff can get just kind of thrown up and mistakes can happen, and so I feel like that part is kind of a con. Even while we've been living here, we've kind of noticed little things that weren't done perfectly or done right. Like I'm literally looking at an outlet right now that is somewhat crooked. So there's just like random stuff like that, and I feel like that's just the case with any house. Even if it's a pre-existing house, you're gonna have little issues like that. But with a new build, at least I would say that is a con. Then another con would be the wait. Obviously, when you buy a new build and you're building from the ground up, you can't just buy the house and move in right then. You have to wait for the entire house to be built, one, and then you also have to wait for all the different regulations and permits and things to clear for your house, and so that can always cause delays, and I don't know, stuff like that can get kind of stressful. Whereas if you have a pre-existing house, you don't have to go through any of that because it's already been done because the house already exists. Okay, next question. Does it feel financially worth it versus buying a pre-lived-in home? So I think this is just different for everyone. Zach and I looked at it as, especially right now with the housing market how it is, we would spend close to the same amount of money that we spent on this house to buy a pre-existing house that had been there for 10, 20 years. That wasn't exactly everything we wanted, and then we would have to spend another 40, 50, 60K on top of that to do a bunch of renovations and painting and all this stuff to really make it what we want. And I felt like if you're comparing, you know, the two side by side, money-wise, it made more sense to do a new build because, like I said, it's very comparable to the prices of pre-existing homes, and it was something that we felt like financially made the most sense because we could just move straight into this and we didn't have to save up even more money to put towards renovating and all of that. So any money that we did put down and put towards this house went straight to like the down payment and all of that, and so none of it was spent on renovating. It was really just spent on like furniture and, you know, whatever else you have to buy when you get into a new house. A lot of the money is definitely spent, but we would have had to spend that money regardless if we'd moved into a new build or a pre-lived-in home. And I felt like just money-wise, it just made so much more sense for us to move into a house like this. Now, some people feel like if they can save a little bit and have a lower mortgage by buying a pre-existing house and they don't have extra money set aside for renovations, they're fine to live in a house that's not exactly what they want. For me and Zach, we're very, very particular, perfectionist type of people, and we really wanted our house to be exactly what we wanted. So to us, it just made sense to spend just a tiny bit more to have a brand new home, which again, it wasn't even that much more than the pre-existing houses that were on the market, and we would have put a ton of money towards renovating a pre-lived-in home, and it makes sense to us to do that. Hopefully that answers that question, but I think it's kind of to each their own and what you feel like makes the most sense for you and your family. But especially with the market the way it is right now, it just made more sense in our opinion to do a new build. How much allowance would you recommend for all appliances and furniture? I think this just depends on what you need. So for us, we already had a bed and another bed for the 2 guest rooms. We already had a couch for like our bonus room. We already had, what else do we have? We already had a mattress for in here. We already had a dresser for the other room. So we already had some pre-existing furniture. We did have to buy like a new bed frame and lamps and some decor and bedside tables and new bedding and couches for downstairs. We did have to buy a fridge and a washer and dryer and all of that. So it's definitely several $1,000s that you're gonna have to set aside for all of that. Again, I think it's just dependent on what exactly you need. Like you might already have a washer and dryer, you don't need to buy that. Zach and I spent a couple thousand on washer, dryer, and fridge, and those are just appliances. And so of course then you go into buying the furniture piece of thing. We definitely spent another couple $1,000s on new furniture. As honest and open as I can about that, I would say you probably need around $10,000 to put towards all that. But that again is just personal to like what we had to buy. I think everyone's situation is different. Definitely just expect to be spending a ton of money and like not even honestly keeping track of how much and where it's going. So I would just, before you buy a house, store away way more money than you think you're even gonna need, because different stuff will come up. And you just never know. You're gonna want to spend a lot of money when you get into a house, because you want to make it how you want it to be, and you want to be comfortable, and you want to buy the right things right out of the gate. At least I did. I didn't want to cheap out on anything, and then like just for the sake of us being new to the house, I wanted to get what I wanted like to last. So just my 2 cents on it. But again, everyone's situation is totally different. Next question is, did you put down any down payment before closing, like when starting the process? We didn't put any money down through the whole like building process other than the earnest deposit, which I think most people have to put that down on a house, even if it's you're putting an offer in on a house. I could be mistaken by that, but I do think you have to give some kind of earnest money, and your earnest deposit kind of like secures the house for you. I could be wrong because we've never bought a pre-existing house, but at least with us for a new build, the earnest money is what secured our lot. So that is the only money that we put down towards that, and that can be any amount really. There's like a minimum that I think you have to put down, and then you can like put down more than that if you want, but you get that money back at closing anyway. It's just basically kind of like a security deposit to secure your lot and say like, hey, we're bought into this, like we're gonna build. That's really the only money that we put towards the house until we got to the closing table. And then this is the same person. They said also, did you have to get pre-approved both when starting the building process and again before closing? So before you even buy a house, you have to get pre-approved. So basically you'll go find a lender and they will ask you for some information. Typically it is just like, I don't even remember now, like I think it's like maybe your bank account numbers and like your current employer, maybe your social security number, things like that, just so they can see like your debt to income ratio and how long you've been employed for and all this, your credit score and all those things, so they can kind of tell you about how much money you have to spend on a house, because all of that kind of factors into what you will be approved for when it comes to a loan. So we went through the pre-approval process, got approved for X amount of money. We knew then that like that was what we had to work with. So that's when we ended up starting to look for homes and decided to go with the new build. We secured our lot, put down the earnest money, and then from there we were able to kind of pick our floor plan and decide, okay, this is how much money we're gonna put towards down payment, out-of-pocket cost, and then the rest would be our loan that we were pre-approved for. That helped when we were in the design center too, because we knew, okay, this is our top budget of like what we can spend, because when you go to the design center, everything that you pick out is considered an upgrade and it adds to the cost of your home. And so we kind of knew, okay, this is how much money we're gonna put of our own towards the house, this is how much we're gonna get in loan amount. So all that kind of factors into your total overall cost of the house, and then what your breakdown of your mortgage will be. Throughout the whole process, they will continue to check in on things with you. So you'll go through a loan application process and you'll put even more information than you did for the pre-approval. And then through the whole process, they'll continue checking things like your credit score. So making sure that you're not like spending a ton of money on anything. You're not buying a brand new car, you're not buying like a rental property or anything like that. You really have to be smart and kind of like by the book when it comes to the time that you're buying a house, especially building. So normally if you're buying a pre-existing house, the process might only take like a month, whereas when you're building, it's going to take several months. And so through that whole process, you're working with your loan officer, and you don't want to just be throwing crazy money out, because they're checking on these things through the whole time, because there are people that are not smart with their money, and then they end up not qualifying to close on their home. And so they have to make sure they're keeping in check with everything that you're doing through the whole process. So yeah, I feel like there were just so many random forms we had to fill out, and then they would like recalculate things based on our credit score and then our interest rates, because interest rates were kind of up and down while we went through this process. And then we obviously had to apply for insurance and all those things. And so once we sent all that stuff to them, then they were able to kind of calculate what our monthly mortgage would be. And for us, we thought we were going to move in a couple months ago, and so they had recalculated everything to be what it would be with the interest rate a couple months ago. And so you have to sign those papers, and then they had to go back and recalculate everything because we ended up moving in later. So it's just a process, and the whole time you're really kind of going back and forth with your loan officer and filling out forms and putting in information, and yeah, it's just a lot through the whole process. So basically, to answer your question, we didn't have to get reapproved before we closed. We just had the pre-approval before we decided to start building. And then, like I said, they kind of just keep tabs on you through the whole process until you get to the closing table. So just make sure that you're being smart. Did you still use a realtor for building? I'm not sure what's most cost effective. So my dad's a realtor, so we kind of did everything with him, but I would recommend using a realtor regardless. When it comes to using a realtor, you really don't have to pay that much at the end of the day for them when it comes down to closing costs, I feel like, and the money you do spend on them is totally worth it. They kind of are able to walk you through the process and kind of double check everything for you to make sure that everything is going to plan. If we didn't have my dad through this process, I don't know, it would have been 10 times harder to figure out. So I am so thankful for that. And obviously I have my dad, but like if you don't have a family member that is a realtor, I would recommend using someone that you trust, that will be able to kind of walk you through everything, check behind you on things, make sure that everything that's happening with the house is happening the way it should and properly, because even though it is a new build, and even if you trust your builder, there's things that can slip through the cracks. There's inspections that need to happen. There are things that you just might not even think of to check on, and your realtor will know those things to look for. So I personally would recommend using a realtor, and typically if you're buying a new build in a like big new build development like what we're in, you will have a realtor that works for the builder, and a lot of people just use them. But you have to remember that they represent the builder, and so they're gonna have nothing but great things to say about your house and what is going on with it. And so it's nice to have like a third-party person, in my opinion, that's involved, that's not kind of biased towards things with the builder, and they're able to kind of be upfront and honest about things just to make sure that everything is going right with your home. Which brings me to another point actually, when it comes to maybe a con of buying a new build, you definitely probably pay a little bit more in closing costs. And again, this all depends on the market, but a lot of times when the market is how it is now, you can get the seller to pay majority of your closing costs, so you might only have to come out like $1,000 out of pocket at the end of the day, versus when you buy a new build, typically the builder is not going to pay very much in closing costs. At least like for us, they only paid $3,500 in closing costs, which was still so great. Like they could have paid nothing, so we were really thankful for that. But a lot of times with new builds, they may or may not be willing to put anything towards closing costs, so that is all on you. But if you have a seller from a pre-existing home, they may be willing to pay for things to get fixed before you move in, or have, you know, money that will go towards closing costs, so you don't have to pay those. Just for reference, I didn't realize this until we closed on a house, but closing costs is your down payment and any like fees and extra things that you pay at the end. So like we obviously had to pay like our servicing fee for our lender. If you have a realtor, you would pay that. Anything with like your appraiser. We also paid our HOA for the like coming year in full, so that was included in our closing cost. And then our down payment, so any money that you're putting towards the down payment of the house is also paid at closing. And we, with our lender, just like wired the money. So we did that like 2 or 3 days before we went actually to close. And then when we got to closing, all we had to do was sign. I say all we had to do, we had to sign a gajillion papers. The closing table is not as overwhelming as I thought it would be. at that point you're just ready to be in your house and you have to sign that stuff regardless. So don't overthink it, just sign it and then move forward, and be excited that you just closed on your new home. What kind of loan did you guys use? So there's so many different loan options. I didn't realize there was as many as there are, but there are so many. There's like FHA, there's conventional, there's one that starts with like a V, I think. There's like so many, and it all just depends on your income and kind of what you qualify for. So some people don't qualify for like FHA loans, maybe if they like make too much money, or there's different loans that you may or may not qualify for based on your income, debt to income ratio, things like that. We went with a conventional loan, and the conventional loan we just felt like made the most sense for us and was recommended by our lender. And there's different options with that too, which I didn't realize. Like you can put either 20% down, I think 10% down maybe, or 3.5% down. So depending on how much money you have saved that you want to put towards your down payment, you can kind of choose, which that was really cool. I had no idea that you had that option. Yeah, I felt like there was a lot of options at the end of the day when it comes to loans that I just had no idea about. So that was really neat to see that there are really options for everyone, because for me, I just always thought that owning a home seemed just so unreasonable for a lot of people, and to see that there are so many things. There's even like down payment assistance programs and things like that, that if you are within a certain income level you can enroll in. I don't know, I just feel like that is so helpful for people that feel like they may not be able to qualify for a loan or a home. There's so many options, so definitely look into your options. And if you're talking to one specific lender about it and they are not willing to be flexible with you or willing to work with you, go to a different lender. There's so many places that you can get home loans from. So definitely shop around and figure out what's going to be the best option for you. Love this question. It says, any baby plans? Do you know what room will be the nursery? Yes, we are definitely excited about, now that we are in a house, the ideas of starting a family, and I have no idea what nursery will be. There's several rooms up on our second level that I think would be perfect for a little nursery. There's one in particular in the back that I really like, but we will cross that bridge when we get there. This question says, why was the process so stressful? Okay, this might just be me in particular. A lot of people said that, oh my gosh, the house buying process was a breeze. I don't know why you're so stressed. And a lot of other people that were like, yes, it was my worst nightmare, it was awful. I think it just depends on you and your process. And I think choosing the right people to get you through the process is what makes it stressful or not. Not to say that I didn't have good people on our team with this whole process. We definitely did. It was just, for me, I felt like it was constantly like, they needed new stuff for the loan process, and I think a lot of it for us was because we had so many delays with the build and we were stressed we weren't going to be in here before the end of the year because we were still waiting on water permits, and it was just taking so long. And I felt like that is just what made it stressful, because there was a lot of uncertainty. And I think when you're buying a pre-existing house, you might not have that type of stress, but you could have the stress of like other people putting offers, and if your offer is going to get accepted. And it's also just a lot of money. So when you see that money going, even though it's going towards something you've dreamed of and wanted forever and you know is so worth it, it still can be kind of stressful, because you just want to make sure that all that money you've been saving is like, I don't know, like, you know, it's going to the right thing. It's just still kind of stressful to just be putting that large amount of money, probably the most money you've ever put towards one thing in your life. And so that can be kind of stressful. And just the move in general, like making sure you coordinate everything, and it can just be overwhelming. And I tried to not stress about it, but the closer it came to when we were supposed to be moving in, and then we weren't moving in, and then I don't know, it just, things just kept piling up, kept happening, kept inconveniencing us. And at the end of the day, it all worked out in God's timing, and we were supposed to be in here, but it just felt very frustrating the whole time that we were supposed to be in here and we weren't, and our house was built and it was just sitting here and we couldn't get into our house. So I guess a lot of my stress stemmed from that, but I think everyone's story is different when it comes to buying a house, and the process may not be stressful for you, but to me, I feel like buying a house is one of the biggest decisions and things that you do in your life, and so with that definitely comes stress. Okay, I feel like this video is getting pretty long now, so I think I'm gonna go ahead and end it off here. I hope that this was helpful. I hope it is a helpful resource for you when you are going through the house buying process, or maybe you're already in the process and that's how you found this video. I hope that, like I said, it can be of some sort of help to you just hearing about someone else's experience. And if you have any other questions, definitely comment them down below or message me on Instagram. I'm always happy to chat through anything with you guys, but just know that the stress, the process, everything is so worth it, especially when you are in your new house and you just feel like you are finally at home. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in